Okay, for this back part, again, we're going to reference our model here, and there's a stitch that's right, basically looks like in line with the rivets here. So that's where I'm going to use an awl to create the stitches. When I get there, we'll talk about it. But right now, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and lay the stitching in into the bag, because again, I believe that these, and I can show you why I'm referencing this, right? I believe that here and this picture, these are not rough edges here. They're not rough. They look to be hemmed up, and I can almost see some stitching here. So I think these are hemmed up, and it looks like they use the sewing machine. There are machines that do that. You do have to hand lace these, but there are leather sewing machines that would make this real quick to do. But anyways, I'm doing this all by hand and just through observation. And I was going to make these top parts, I was going to make them rough, but I said, nah, let me go ahead and just go the extra mile. So we're not going to do the hem until the panels are sewn in. Okay, so what I'm going to do, like we talked about before, is I'm going to rubber cement this down, and what I want to do is align this top line with my hem fold. You may not be able to see it, but I have it marked here with my coloring pencil. All right, and I'm not on the inside, I'm on the outside. My fabric leather here, my leather fabric. And then I have a center line here so that the middle piece of our panel can fit, like approximately like right there, probably just a little below. So once I put rubber cement, basically, from about here down, I will take my marble here and I will place it. This is a heavy piece of wood, stone. Every element but what I'm looking for. Heavy piece of stone, and I'm just going to place it down below the two rivets, so it can set. And then we'll just do the same process as we did with the front. I probably won't go through all of that, just for time, and I think you get the concept of what I'm trying to do here, and the reference from the reference material. So that's the next step, or how I'm going to handle this piece here, and then I will see you on the other side when it's all done, or at least when it gets to that point. Alright, so here's the finished piece, sewn on, and again, there's room for a belt loop here, so I didn't tack that down. I did do the tacking down, but with same color, so it's hardly noticeable. I could have took them out, but since this is going to be facing towards the body, no one will really see it. But the stitching turned out okay. It's a little hectic because not the full surface was tacked down with this rubber cement, so it kind of came up. So it was important for me to actually really tack them down in these 3 points, and then I was able to continue on. So we are getting close to sewing the body of the bag together, because we have the leather accoutrements, which is basically the fastening portions. So and mini sporrans actually are much more simpler than this to make, much more simpler than this to make. I just like this design that I saw on Pinterest and decided to give it a try. Because I knew I had the materials. Let's see here. So next, what I want to do is kind of give this a polish. We'll do a polish again when we're all done with this project, just to clean it up when it's all finished. But this is what's called atomized wax, or wax for leather balm, and what it does is after you get through staining or painting your leather, your vegetan leather, you can then add this onto the leather, and then when it dries you buff it and it'll give it a nice sheen and help protect it. But after you do that, you really can't really dye it anymore. It's really difficult. You can do it with the USMC black, but even then some of it will come off on your hands. So I just take the wax here and just kind of rub it in, and like this, and then we'll just kind of let that dry a little bit. And like I said, when we're all done, we'll do, you know, the whole piece again, including the bag, because I think it'll be nice to hit the bag. So one part I just add, and then another, and then on the front plate, on the front piece, we'll just do the same thing. So I'll just dip this in there and just kind of work this in like that. And then when this dries, go ahead and close this so I don't spill it all over the place. Then I use the dry part or paper towel or another dry towel, and then I can buff it. So you just kind of buff it. And you'll start to see a bit of a sheen come out, right? So I'll just start to buff it. And then I can use my fingers to get in between the studs that we put in. And, you know, just to give it a nice kind of finished look, even in case we don't get to it, but to set in some pieces here. Now, something I didn't do or I didn't show on camera is when you're done doing the lacing here and when you're done doing this type of saddle stitching, you usually take a hammer and kind of pound them down. It kind of sets and spreads out and sets in your lacing, and it sets in your stitching. Just so you know, veteran leather workers know that, so it's a common practice. So there we go. You kind of got a nice little sheen to it, and you can always add more, like shoe signing or something like that. So I can take this here, do the same thing to this piece here. And you know, you can hopefully that comes up. See? So before that it wasn't treated, so I could have continued to dye it, but now it's a little bit more protected. Once you add the leather balm. All right, enough of that. We'll do more of that later. So now we are all set to put our pieces together. So this is the middle part, and we've got our holes punched in. We've got the fixtures attached, sewn on. Got our holes punched in. So now we just have to get to sewing. Now I'm gonna have to sew this inside out like this. I'm going to turn it right side in because I want to hide the seam. The other thing that I'm not doing is adding a welt. And a welt is another strip of leather in between two other pieces of leather. And what the welt does is, it makes it easier to swap out. It's usually done with moccasins or mucklucks or shoes, holsters sometimes. But the welt helps make it real tight when you're saddle stitching or when you're stitching. And it also makes it really kind of easy to replace. Welts are also important if you're making sheaths for knives as well, because it gives it something to blade to run against, like a nice thick piece of, but it's kind of wedged in there, you know, opposite wedged in there, so that the blade hits the leather and not the seams, which ends up cutting the seams that you created. But we're not going to add a welt. The design that we're working with, from the way it looks, I don't see a welt. Okay, so we are just going to be, there's going to be 2 stitches that I'm going to use primarily. And the first stitch, just to put the pieces together, is going to be just a regular running stitch, just to make it real quick and easy. And then when we do our hem, we will do what's called I'll probably do a chain stitch, or even just a back stitch. And I have videos on how to do a back stitch. I may just do the chain stitch just to show. It's kind of a little different, or at least what I call a chain stitch. That makes it look like it's actually sewn like a sewing machine. So right now we're just going to do a running stitch, and I'm going to get to a particular place with it, and then I will show you where we're at. Alright, so I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. So I'm going to start with the front piece here. So I want to start sewing. Oh, by the way, I've already punched my holes into the side panel here, and kind of want to match this up with the top. And I'm just going to kind of start stitching, and I can kind of stitch and pinch these around the corners here. It's kind of hard to do this with paper for a model, but you know, without cutting it, because the paper wants to crinkle and stuff, but fabric works in a different way, or leather does, and fabric. Anyhow, to start off, again, I'm just going to use a running stitch. So let me see, I'm probably going to do this on this side. Which side am I going to go? Yeah, let's go this side. And again, I want the panel facing up, and then the skin side facing, you know, skin to skin basically, and then swayed out, so skin to skin. So I want to start like this, and I can kind of pinch these together. I already have a knot in my thread, so just keep it simple. And I'm gonna go in probably about 1/4 of an inch or so. And then these, like I said, these needles are great. You just have to, you know, sometimes you kind of have to give a little bit of oomph to get started, and then put that in there too. All right, but once these, you can make sure these are matched up fairly well, and then I can pull this through like that, and then I've got my knot. Okay, I could go through again, both of them, and then I'll start just to lock things into place. So to have better leverage, I'm going to go off camera and then start again. Okay, now I'm gonna just keep it like that. So basically that's my first stitch. So a running stitch is just, I'm just gonna go in, out, in, out, in, out. Really easy. The problem with the running stitch though is that it's one of those stitches that you use when you want to make a gather in say a sleeve at the shoulder. If you're making like a bloused anything but a bloused shoulder in your shirt or garment, you would before you sew the main pieces together, you would just do a running stitch, and then you gather the pieces together so that you have the little ruffles, or you have you'd have the little ruffles. So this will tend to want to do that. So you just want to, you know, every few stitches or so, you want to kind of stretch it out and make sure it's even. And then at the end, when we get to the other side, we'll put our knot in, and then as long as it's even, it will stay together. Okay, but we don't want it to gather a bunch up. I'm using this stitch just because it's fast and easy, as opposed to some of the other types of stitches. Because this leather is, even though it's garment grade, it is still pretty thick. It's not as fine as even thinner weight of garment leather or fabric.